Good morning, everyone. It is a little after 8:30, and this is the meeting of the Legislative and Human Resources Committee of the Kent County Board of Commissioners. I'll go ahead and call us to order. The first item of business is public comment. If there's anyone here from the public that wishes to address the committee, you may do so by identifying yourself, but I don't see any member of the public here, so we'll move on to the next item, number 2, which is approval of the minutes of September 28, 2021. Is there a motion to approve? Moved and supported. Discussion? If not, all those that support say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. It is approved. All right, let's move to our next item, number 3, Friend of the Court Performance and Measurement Review. Dan Foytek is here. Good morning, Dan. Good to see you.
Good to be here. Funny thing happened on the way to the office today. I was cruising by the zoo and at this bar of a skunk smell. That on me, so apologies to anybody I may offend. I couldn't go home to Grand Haven to change. I think we're okay, but
I took the same route, so I know what you're talking about.
thank you. It was bad. Anyways, pleased to present the Friend of Court's Performance Measurement Review. I'm Dan Foytek. I've been the director of the FLC for almost 6 years now. I've been with the county for 23 years most of the time. Before I start, I just want to give you a quick thank you for all your helpful and in person this year. Plan on covering all the elements shown on this slide. But before I launch into the metrics, I'll give just a little overview about the office. Give you a little historical perspective. The Friend of the Court's been around since 1919, established by statute. Friend of the Court's kind of a goofy sounding term, but it's the English translation, the Latin term amicus curiae or amicus curiae, pronounced, which means a disinterested third-party opinion designed to assist the court in arriving at a judicial decision. All our duties are now outlined by the Friend of the Court Act and the Support and Parenting Time Enforcement Act. We enforce child support orders, custody and parenting time orders. We child support. We follow the Michigan Child Support Formula Manual. We investigate custody and parenting time issues and make recommendations to the court. And we provide mediation services for custody and parenting time. We have 14 departments, 102 employees, over 1,000 cases. Anytime we have a domestic relations case in the circuit court, which would be a divorce case, a paternity, automatically have a Friend of the Court case unless they opt. It's easy to get back in once they're out. A lot of people opt back in when they find it. It's good to have somebody keep track of the payments that are coming in or can mediate issues for them. No one ever really wants a Friend of the Court case, but we can be quite helpful, especially with families who have a lot of issues. Still in high volume. On a typical non-pandemic year, we process over 14,000 orders, conduct over 3,000 support reviews, 84,000 phone calls. We work to resolve over 3,000 warrants, and we schedule over 8,000 support contempt hearings. Each of our metrics that we track do align with the board's priorities and goals. We have 6 strategic goals. Economic prosperity, that's achieved primarily through our contract with Michigan Department of Human and or MDHHS for 66% of our funding. High quality of life is promoted through professional analysis of the best interests of children in our custody and parenting time investigation. Also make it easy to protect parents. Excellence in service delivery results from timely child support reviews. It's based on a person's ability to pay, and we enter orders onto the state MISA system to keep track of payments. We quickly and Excellence in service delivery is also achieved through use of technology to identify cases falling out of compliance, court order, and to initiate timely enforcement. Inclusive participation is gained. Our community outreaches and an active citizen advisory committee. There's effective communications promoted by being able to available to answer questions about policies, procedures, and specific case information. Our first goal is to maximize grant funding and revenue opportunities. Just to give you a broad overview of funding, as mentioned, the federal government funds 66% of our operation through Title 4D of the Social Security Act. That's like having a 66% off coupon. Our contract with MDHHS has been extended recently another 2 years through fiscal year 2020. 5-year contract, they've just extended it 2 more years. And in that contract, we have certain contract performance standards that we have to meet, and that's outlined in the Invisio report. And that's in the areas of locating payers that need to be located, providing medical support in the child support orders, reviewing and modifying support, and timely enforcement. We have to meet basically 75% come up in order to meet those measures. We exceeded the standards in fiscal year 2020. I don't have the final numbers for 2021, but we were on track at the end of Q3. Also receive incentives for collections on current support charges and collections on arrears. The federal goal for both of those is 80%. That graph shows the incentives, monies that we collect through our collection. We don't always meet the 80% on those collections. Years ago, we were the first large county to do so, and it kind of fluctuates down. We also receive a medical incentive. That's 15% on the collections of state-owned medical. It's, each child support order has a small portion assigned for medical support. If somebody goes on Medicaid for the child, that portion's assigned over to the state. And anything we collect on that 15% goes back to our program, and that funds our entire bench warrant department. Second goal, provide stability for children through custody and parenting time investigations referred by the court and through alternative dispute resolution. That's mediations primarily. We have 3 primary objectives in this area. 90% of the court referrals for custody and parenting time investigations are to be completed within 90 days. That was a deadline set by our court. We had a significant COVID challenge. Our office was not equipped to work remote. Most of us had desktop PCs. We weren't allowed to have in-person meetings with parents, which we always do. Court referrals were down. We had the court hearings, so we didn't get as many referrals. But still, we conducted in 2020 517 evals on custody and parenting time. That's 117 fewer than we did in 2019. The ones we completed, 91% were within 90 days. Year to date through September, we've completed 529 evals, and so that's an increase already over 2020. We're getting a lot more referrals now from the court. We're getting on track there, and we get these referrals to investigate when the court determines at a hearing that proper cause has been shown or there's a change of circumstances to review. The second objective is 90% of mediation scheduled within 60 days. We conducted 137 mediations in 2020. 59 of those were walk-ins, and that's unique to Kent County. A couple years ago, our unit came up with walk-in mediation. We had Tuesdays and Thursdays set aside when parents could come in without an appointment, first come, first served. We'd mediate their case. No other county that I'm aware of has done that. And it's getting more popular. We can't do that in person now, so last year we started doing it online where parents could sign up for a particular time slot, and then we conducted over Zoom. And year to date, we've done 76 of those. So they're becoming more and more popular. I think that's the way to go. Our third objective in this area, 90% of parenting time complaints are to be resolved without a contempt hearing. Most parenting time complaints are resolved without a hearing. have a lot of parenting time complaints. In 2020, we received over 1,500. Only 715 of those were valid, though. So why would some complaints be invalid? It may be that the person who sent in the complaint, they don't have a specific enough court holidays and whatever. The prosecutor frequently will establish a support order and just say parenting time is agreed between parents. We can't really enforce that. It's not specific enough. And so we sometimes meet with the parents and we'll try to work out a better order for them, better than going to court. And so most of these are resolved without a hearing. 94% were resolved last year without a hearing. This graph just shows comparison. Sorry about that. Third goal, assist the court in entering timely and appropriate support orders. Entering a timely and appropriate orders means conducting support reviews quickly based on a person's ability to pay. It also includes placing the orders once entered by the court on the MISIS system quickly. Our goal is to do that within 3 days. That 90-day deadline is self-imposed by the office. The statute gives us 120 days to complete. Again, we had a significant COVID challenge. We weren't remotely. We had, again, fewer referrals. And we had to learn to conduct objection hearings remotely. An objection hearing is when we issue a recommendation, a party has 21 days to object. If they don't agree with that, then we set it for an objection hearing. So all those had to go to Zoom after a long period of not having hearings. And it's interesting, we received fewer requests for support reviews from the payers because many who received unemployment benefits actually saw an increase of income. Had we done a review, they'd have to pay more child care. That's reflected in the stats. 2020, we conducted 2,084 reviews. That's 957 fewer than we did in 2019. Year to date through September, we've conducted 1,480. 87.5% of those were conducted within 90 days. And that's still on the low end, so I'm going to keep monitoring that to whether or not that increases soon. It should, especially as everyone's entering the workforce. Our order processing department, they did an outstanding job last year. They processed over 11,000 orders in 2020, 100% within 3 days. Our fourth goal, assist the court by readily identifying and commencing action on those cases in need of child support, enforcement, and utilizing innovative solutions to address noncompliance. We have 3 objectives in that area. I've mentioned the federal goal of 80% to collect on current support charges in cases with arrears. We hit 75% collection on current in fiscal year 2020. That increased to 75.86% in 2021. And it's all measured on fiscal year. Collection on arrears, 2020 we were 85.5%. That went down slightly 2021 to 84.35%. And I believe it was higher in 2020 because there was withholding against the stimulus payments. About that. That was something the feds imposed. Our court was not in favor of that, but there wasn't any choice in that. It was just automatic withholding that came in through the program. And that dramatically increased collection on arrears. Same thing with unemployment compensation. A little about our enforcement strategy. It starts with trying to connect with payers immediately when the new case is open. We have what's called the Early Engagement Program. full-time. They reach out to payers who have a new court order to explain that order to them, tell them about our services, try to engage with them better, and establish a good rapport. That's especially important with default orders from the prosecutor's office. Sometimes these payers don't even know that they have a support order that was in papers. They were incarcerated, they couldn't do anything about it. So it's good to see what's going on with that case early on. Sometimes we can have a support review if it's correctly, and we can get this case on track. Also, for cases that are established, we have the Resources for Parents program. Partner with 21 employers and 37 agencies, especially 70 times 7 life recovery to help payers with criminal record get employment. This program's been good for payers who have certain barriers that inhibit them from complying with their court order. But if all efforts to gain compliance are ineffective, we do have to schedule show cause contempt hearing in front of the judge and explaining why you should not be held in contempt for not complying with your support order. 2019, we scheduled over 8,000 of those hearings. We had a major drop during the pandemic. There was no in-person court. In 2020, we only scheduled 2,214 of those. In-person hearings to the end of March, and then nothing again until August, where we had to establish virtual hearings via Zoom. Effective. We had 305 Zoom hearings from October. Fortunately, after having virtual hearings all the way through August of this year, we were able to get back on track with in-person hearings, scheduling probably 200 of those a week now. Our third objective is to have 85% of bench warrants handled by the deputies that are assigned to our office will be resolved without arrest. It's an outstanding job. In 2020, they resolved 793 warrants. That's 98.5% without arrest. Year-to-date, 2021 through September, they resolved 466. That's 99.5%. Without arrest. I don't know who that 1.5% was, but they do a really good job. Elections, trying to meet the federal measure. Before the pandemic, they did resolve a lot more warrants. They resolved 1,303 in 2019. The moratorium on arrests and very little in contact allowed in 2020. Starting to open up now. Not going out there and trying to arrest people. They're trying to. Our fifth goal, be responsive to community concerns about FOC personnel and operations, and try to educate and engage those who have an FOC case through effective community outreach. 2 objectives there. 100% of our grievances will be answered within days. We usually, there were only 11 grievances in 2020. Year to date, we've received 9. 2 of those were non-grievable. I think one person was arguing with the court about a court decision. That's not a filed. Also, I think there was an individual who didn't have a grievance. We don't have a case. As I mentioned, there's only 2 citizen advisory committees statewide in Kent and Macomb County. Commissioner Kowalski is on our. And the CAC reviews every grievance that comes through. We discuss these at our bi-monthly meetings. And they're also interested in our policies, procedures, and our customer service. Our other objective in this area is to have monthly outreaches to at least 3 agencies or groups that reach payers who are homeless, incarcerated, or need special services. Not being able to have any outreaches since 2019, we held 64 of these. Family Ministry, Strong Fathers, Hispanic Center, Guiding Light Mission, 70x7 Life Recovery, and Kent County Correctional Facility, as well as Bellamy Creek Prison and the Salvation Army. Hope these agencies will back to these important outreaches. But in the meantime, we continuously update our website and try to give the best information we can on our policies and procedures. And as I'll mention in a minute, we developed a lot of online services for folks. These graphs just illustrate the number of grievances. Outreach meetings. Sixth goal, deliver exceptional customer service by answering inquiries promptly and accurately. In 2020, you can see from the graph, we received substantially fewer calls than we did in 2019. 47,841 in 2020, 2019. We had significant COVID challenges in call center. Our current phone system's not equipped for remote work. Still had to roll some of those folks out of there or reduce our hours, and sometimes phones weren't even up, not in the pandemic. At one point, we had the customer service reps assign cell phones, and anyone who had a question or called the front of the court could leave a message. We'd get back to them. So we encourage two-way communication on the ICE support system. That's a website they can sign on to and establish an account, get their case information. Site. Also, they could contact us through foc.mail, regular email. In 2020, we responded to over 10,000 two-way communications. In addition, we responded to 1,535 regular emails. And our call center has been back full-time since mid-February of this year, and our lobby's been open. Our customer service reps do try to answer most questions without transferring to someone else in the department. Most calls are resolved without transfer. In 2020, we resolved 93%. Year to date, through September, we're at 96.8%. We're looking forward to the new phone system, Ring Central, and hope that that can assist us with improving customer service. Significant accomplishments in 2020. I think it's true of many departments. We had to add a lot of online services. We can now do remote meetings with parents to conduct evaluations and mediations. Have online scheduling so someone can virtual support review, objection hearings. DocuSign, we finally implemented that. I knew the county was trying to put together an electronic system that the judges could sign their orders, and COVID hit, and lo and behold, here's a system, DocuSign, that we could use. We were running orders to the court 3 times a week, back and forth, to have them sign. Now it just goes right to the judge's computer. We've also modified forms online to allow parents to submit forms electronically. That's all we have, when we custody investigations, have them fill out the parent packet. They can do that online now. Class support review packet out. They can even fill out grievances. We made that. We really had to adapt a lot during this pandemic. As I mentioned, most of our computers were desktop PCs. We roll up to the curb and load them into the cars so they could get home and work remotely. That was a big operation, and we also had to figure out access to the state system. Our department was really involved in that. They did it. We always wanted remote access to MISIS, and now we have it, and I don't think. A lot of innovation, a lot of special efforts by staff, and I think we're much improved at this point than we were even before the pandemic. Another item I think is a significant accomplishment. We set up a Dropbox station for documents and for payments. Our lobby was closed at times, so first we started with document drop. We got quite a few documents. Added the payment box in February, and year to date through September, we've had 328 payments come through there. It's starting to catch on, and it saves folks from having to, if they're just dropping something off, they don't have to come up to the second floor. This is located right by the security station, and it's been a good move for us. Ed, I do want to continue to focus on increasing collections. Bring enforcement back to the pre-pandemic level. That would include in-person contact through the deputies. We need to increase, want to maintain the number of show cause a year again. Increase services through the resources, especially our monthly outreaches. I mentioned last year a new thing, a arrears clinic. We're trying to develop, just a few of us. This would be a resource payers with high support arrears to see what we can do. Many other offices doing this. Especially helpful if they have state-owed arrears, because then we can really help qualify for partial or full discharge. If their case predates 2010, have what's called surcharges. It's like interest that like an artificial arrears. That's why Michigan always shows a higher arrears than states, because we had surcharges. But still we have cases where we can get on a payment plan to extinguish those arrears. If too much is coming out of a paycheck, they can contact this clinic and we can adjust those down. If they face obstacles like unemployment, we can throw them in the resource. Licenses, driver's license. And they can do this for the regular case management staff as well. Even when payees who want to waive part of their, they have reasons for that. Maybe the payees, if they want to waive. Since we've been doing this just part-time, state-owed arrears have been waived in the amount of $376,562. This is just part-time. I recently handled a case myself, a 93 paternity case. Had a 55-year-old guy, owed over $22,000 to the state. He's on Social Security disability. Been paying regular since 2011. He's a good payer now. Wasn't before. Filed emancipated in 2003. Okay. We got a 28-year-old case. I was able to get approval from the state to waive these arrears. As we reached out to him, and this is not what the payers expect. That usually they hear from us, it's like, hey, you're behind, you got to pay. No, this is how can we help you handle these arrears? We extinguish them. Sometimes when I call payers to, or invite them to talk to me and see what we can do, they think it's a scam call. So, got to do a little education with some folks that were actually trying to reach out to help. So. Happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you, Dan, for that report. Are there questions or comments from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner McLeod.
Good morning. Thank you for that great report. It's a lot of good information that is really helpful to understand really how much work you and your staff do on a daily basis, so thanks for this information. I had a couple questions. So the first one is about payment options for payers. I remember, what was it, a couple years ago, where there was some expanded options to allow payers to make payments not just obviously from the amounts that are pulled from their paychecks, but making it easier to pay at, like, was it grocery stores? And I feel like there was some expansions
Yeah,
done for
what are
that.
those called? Yeah, there's certain stores where they have kiosks, I believe.
Okay,
It's called Pay Near Me, and they've set those up like at Walgreens and different places. I haven't actually seen one myself.
okay.
But they are there.
Is that just in Kent County, or is that?
That's statewide.
That's statewide, okay, so that was, okay, I just wanted to be clear on that. And then I thought that what you were talking about, your last story in terms of the arrears relinquishment for the guy that, had the 28-year, issue. So tell me how you typically go about determining which cases to, put a little bit more effort into to relinquish arrears? Is there a standard sort of guidelines? How does that happen?
It's something we came up with. We want to look at the older cases, so we have an IT department that can run a query. So all the older cases, and we're just starting with payers who have just one case. A lot of them have multiple cases. But launched this program. Old cases, we even had cases from '69. So here's with single cases with state-owned only arrears. A couple of us, we've been sworn in as special assistant prosecutors where still with state-owned arrears. Plus the arrears. Sometimes if it's a pay plan, I do have to get permission. Having that special assistant prosecutor status.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I really enjoyed the report, getting all the information. I have just a couple questions. It was very interesting to hear all the financial side of how the department works. I guess when I think of economic prosperity, I think more about the residents of the county. So I would be interested, your story about the arrears is a perfect example, right? Like, how are you helping money flow among the residents of the people that you serve? Would be interesting to me if you could, if there's some kind of way of reporting that, going to the families, your increase in collections, or resolving these arrears cases. That would be interesting to me.
Well, we're primarily known for collecting child support. We also do spousal support, but that's not funded by the government. So the child support, there's distribution guidelines the Fed makes us follow. And when money flows, it goes to the family first. A lot of folks think that monies just go to state-owned. 92%, over 92% go to the families first. And that's the only distribution I know of through our office.
I had another question too. I wondered when you're working with people who owe support, is there any mechanism to help them connect with expungement efforts since that law was passed? Because I'm assuming that would help some of these payers gain employment and make their payments.
Yeah, I don't know much about expungement. I've never done the criminal law. I've always been a family law lawyer, but that's a great idea. We can talk to the prosecutor's office. Maybe they know more about that, or the defender's office. But helping them get a job is my main concern, so they can pay their support order. We try to do that through our Resources for Parents program. Maybe that's something they can do.
That's what, I would think so.
Some agency or office or somebody. That's a good idea.
Yeah. And then I just had a question about when you're resolving warrants without an arrest. What does that look like? Does that just mean the deputy's able to convince them to show up for a hearing, or what exactly does it look like when you resolve it without an arrest?
I'll go out to their house and talk with them. They're plain clothes. Their cars aren't marked. It's more of an outreach. They go there and they talk to them and tell them about our services, ask them what their situation is. Maybe they can't pay, okay? Maybe just pay $50 for now and we'll get you a support review or whatever it takes. But they have authority to do what's fair and equitable with each case to resolve that warrant. And sometimes they'll even drive the payer to wherever to pick up a few bucks to pay on the account. And so the payers are quite pleased with the program, actually. And we get, sometimes we help one guy, he'll call his buddy, and the deputies go out there and help him too. So it's been a great outreach for
And then I just had another question. The walk-in mediation sounds brilliant, and hats
I
off
wish
for
I
that.
came up with it, but it was my assistant.
Oh, it sounds really great. But then, do you intend to keep going with the Zoom mediations for parents? Like, to keep offering that? Because that sounds really helpful.
Convenient, and it's like
Yeah.
with the court hearings, it's more convenient, you don't have to come to the courthouse and find parking, and it's just easier on folks.
And they have good
I think
compliance.
the court's gonna
Yeah.
keep doing that too.
Yeah,
Yeah. I know
nice.
the referees all do, right?
Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. First, I just want to say thanks to you and your staff. I know when those who benefit the most are, Kent County kids that don't really know that they're, benefiting, that it's often a thankless job that you all do. So thank you. And then I have the privilege of spending the week with Chair Steck, Commissioner Hennessy, and Paul as well, and the Senior Millage Review Committee. And one of the things we're hearing from most organizations is just the challenges with staff recruitment and retention, and also wage inflation. Are you experiencing now, or do you expect to in the future, major challenges in that area?
We haven't so far. County employment. Felt we had to offer 2 remote days a week to staff. Part of the recruitment now. Offer 2 remote days to our staff. That helps a lot to retain. Haven't so far. We have 3 customer service rep positions right now.
Okay, thank you so much.
Anyone else? So Dan, I thank you for explaining where the term friend of the court comes from. I had a client once say, why do they call it that? It's not the court and they're not very friendly.
Right, we've been called a lot of names.
So, and unfortunately, you do tend to deal with the public at points in their lives that are not necessarily their highlights. I know it's difficult and challenging. So it strikes me that the process of reaching out into the community that you described is really kind of important. And I'm wondering how that, I know that was down significantly in 2020 because of the COVID response, but how are we doing in 2021? Are we getting that back up, so you're getting back into the community, reaching out and talking to folks?
That's been a problem, because these agencies we partner with just aren't having events right now. Hispanic Center and set up, and we haven't eyes, but they're not opening up to us right now.
Okay.
So we're just waiting, kind of in a holding pattern.
Well, it's possible that we'll never get back to absolute normal again, so I just encourage you, maybe look for new ways of reaching out, because I do think that's critical to do for what you do. A couple of other questions. A couple of years ago, it seems to me that there was a lot of talk about parenting time coordinators. Do we still do that? Are those still encouraged by the FOC?
That's really something the court would order. We're not really involved in that. I don't think it's that frequent.
I don't hear about it much
I
anymore.
don't hear about it either. It seems to be topics that sounded really good, but I don't know how well it works.
Okay.
It doesn't really affect our office.
Then the other question is, we hear more and more about parental alienation. Does the FOC have any programming or instruction for clients or for your constituents on how to address parental alienation?
Wish my assistant was here. She deals more.
Okay.
That may come up, and it probably, I'm sure it frequently comes up in custody and parenting time. I don't know how prevalent it is.
Yeah.
That's something
Well-
I can get back to you on.
Okay, I would appreciate that. I mean, it'd be great if we never hear about it, but I have a feeling that it's still out there and still maybe pretty latent, but it's still out there. All right, good. Any other questions? If not, thank you, Dan. Appreciate you coming in this morning and giving us the report. All right, next item is miscellaneous. I have a couple of items. Anyone else have a miscellaneous item? Okay, so the three-ring binders in front of you, those are the assignments for the interview process that we are about to begin, including the identification of the team. We have, as I said last time, 3 teams. Sorry, Dan, I think I left you out, and I called Ben Green in, but he's not in this committee, so anyway, that was you. So we have 3 teams, subcommittees that will be doing the interviewing. Your book should have just the assignments for that team and the designated conveners or chairs. So encourage you to get through these and then have each of the conveners to set up your meetings following that to make determinations whether or not you need to do interviews, who you want to interview, and ultimately who you're going to recommend on the opening. So if you have questions as you get through that, let me know. I think we're looking at trying to get this back to us by the meeting in November. I'm not sure when our meeting in November is. Do we have 1 meeting in November or 2? I have a feeling we're not going to have 2 because of Thanksgiving, but anyway, point is, we need to get started on it, so, yes. The 18th, okay. So that's your target date.
So he's going to be,
You mean the interviews? I think you can go either way, but I think we've typically, the last year we did these by Zoom, did we not? So
yes, it seems to work out better for the person.
it's easier for them to tack in.
Drive down, they could just do it from.
Yep, that's a good point. All right, and then lastly, just a point of information, we are going to do a abbreviated or shortened legislative meeting with some of our legislators on Monday. That is, Commissioner Skaggs and I will be meeting with a number of the legislators to review some of our priorities. I know typically in the past, we've done that with a larger group, but because of the current situation, we're going to do that in an abbreviated version and then look at opening that up later on next year for maybe something more typical of bringing all of us in. So, anything else? If not, some of us are just chomping at the bit to get back to senior millage, so we are adjourned.